No, wait, you were both away after me. Three.
Sorry, sir.
So, got 3, 2, 1.
Hello, you are listening to TW3. We're the show that highlights the world's insanities. We poke fun at those who deserve it, and we tackle the fake news that plagues us. I'm your host, Dominic Lane, and I'm joined by the infallible Lawrence Ray.
Yeah, boy.
And this week we're joined by Gregory Bush. This week we'll find out who are the largest buyers of explosives in the world. We'll take a deep dive into some coronavirus fake news, and we'll later on be peeking into the life of John McAfee. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. So it's been an interesting week this week. Quarantine all over the world. How are things in Brazil, Lawrence?
It is great out here, man. So the president spent, I think it was $5 million dollars on a campaign to tell people to go outside because he thinks it's an overreaction. Whilst the local state heads, like I'm in Santa Catarina, they told everyone to stay inside, and they've been forced to quarantine with the military police. So it's a real wish-wash of president or local state, and things are getting interesting over here, man. It's good. It's good times.
Oh, that's good to hear, Lawrence. So, how are things? How are things with you, G?
All good. Yeah, just getting used to quarantine life. I've adapted some great home workouts, and I've got my suspension trainer thing arriving tomorrow, so that'll be great fun. I can't wait to wreck all the door frames in the house by trying to hang off that.
You know what I read this week? I read that Sports Direct were trying to basically be classified as a necessary service, and he was, what's his name? Mike Ashley, that's it. He was
Mike Ashley.
Emailing the government saying, we think we should be a necessary service, and you are to let us keep open. And then about 4 days later, he abruptly apologised because they told him flat out that is not the case.
Man's got to have his trackies, isn't he?
It's very true. And I also heard that he was price gouging as well. So a lot of items were actually being put up in price as people turn to home fitness to basically as a way to keep fit and keep sane in this time of national crisis.
It's interesting how things are going to change after this. I mean, obviously unemployment's going to be a bit more, and a lot of shops will go down. I think that internet shopping will be much more popular after this, and I also think that working from home will be too. So there are some kind of positives.
No, absolutely. There certainly are. I think one of the biggest places that have taken a massive hit is the high street. And the high street, which was already struggling nationally with a lot of companies barely being able to hold a positive cash flow, has now taken a real deep dive. I noticed that Laura Ashley will be calling an administrator soon, and I'm sure many, many more will follow. So that is a bit of a shame to see that a high street that's already struggling take a bit of a dive.
My local pizza place, though, is making an absolute killing just from me alone, so it's not all bad.
Well, that is the one positive way to look at it. Certainly, I think takeaway food shops. I did also see, I don't know if you picked it up, that Leon has essentially positioned their stores as more as like a takeaway type supermarket almost type place. And they're actually hiring nationwide because they're on this kind of mission to feed the NHS, which I thought was a brilliant mission to be a part of, and a very clever way of a hospitality company, which of course is just like the high street, is really struggling at the moment, and they're essentially repositioning themselves in order to stay afloat during this time.
Yeah, clever idea. I like Leon as well. It's good food there. Not that we're paid to advertise them here at all. But...
No, not yet anyway.
Not yet, but I do like it there. Absolutely. But there's lots of silver linings.
So I think, absolutely. So let's dive into our first story of the week.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is brought to you by G, who's looking at the largest buyers of explosives.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this one.
Always on a positive note. Maybe fairly obvious, guys, but first of all, a question. Who do you reckon Biggest buyer of explosive in the world. Sorry,
North Korea.
The biggest buyer of explosives in the world.
No. I'm going to go ahead and say biggest buyer. Is it a country or a company?
So as a country, yeah.
It's got to be
Iran.
United States of America, surely.
Of course, yeah. The US Department of Defense, right? You know, they always infamously bragging about the size of their military, especially recently that Trump's claimed that they had no bullets, but nowadays he's rectified that. But more interestingly, and the real interesting part of this story, can you tell me who number 2 is?
Russia.
No, not Russia.
Who's angry all the time?
Yeah, that's why I said North Korea.
Yeah, Iran, North Korea.
He's always angry. Iran's pretty angry all the time.
I'm going to say...
China. Surely China. No, but China would make them, wouldn't they?
Well, guys, I'll put you out of your misery. And to be fair, it is a bit of a trick question, maybe second place. Because it is, in fact, Disney World is the second largest buyer of explosive in the world.
Oh, wow. Really?
Okay. Yeah.
How is that even possible?
Spends a massive $50 million every year to purchase them. Said that before you freak out and start imagining Disney to be another US conspiracy to dominate the world, let's just make clear that these explosives obviously have a entirely different purpose. They are, of course, the fireworks that they use to entertain their guests every day of the year. Yeah, what I would do with $50 million a year, those would be some firework parties, wouldn't they?
Yeah, jeez.
That's very interesting.
It did make me think. So we go to war tomorrow. Thankfully, Disney is on our side. Which Disney character do you want in your deployment squad?
Oh, okay.
I'm a big Buzz Lightyear fan.
No, it's a solid choice, I reckon.
Buzz is a pretty good
I think that's
legend.
a solid choice.
I'm going to go ahead and say, let's think, Disney. Who do I want on my side? Oh, mate, are we counting Pixar with this?
Yeah, why not? It's all rolled together. They own everything nowadays, don't they?
We're counting Pixar. The dog from Up, mate. He can talk and he's a dog. Doesn't get any better than that.
It'd be great for team morale, wouldn't he?
Absolute legend, yeah. He'd be up for it, no matter what he's going. So, yeah, I'm going for Dog from Up.
Well, surely one of the Incredibles would stand you in pretty good stead as well.
See, this is going to be my choice. So obviously, Mr. Incredible was in my squad. Thanks very much, yeah.
No, he's got nothing on Doug the dog, mate. Nothing on Doug.
Oh, I think Incredibles actually, but I'm a massive Toy Story fan, so I'm going to stick strong with Woody and Buzz Lightyear. I think
Toy Story is pretty dope. I'll give you that.
It's one of the greatest films ever produced, I think. Yeah, Lawrence, what was that story that you once told me about PepsiCo? Something about the world's superbass.
It essentially was saying that it was when Pepsi made a deal with the Russians, the Communist Party in Russia. So this was a little while back. And essentially, during some sort of meeting in Moscow, Pepsi was there to demonstrate American goods, and the argument was going on between the president and I think it was Khrushchev. I can't remember who it was, maybe Brezhnev. And yeah, he tried Pepsi, loved it. They got into a deal and they traded, I think it was some ridiculous amount of Stolichnaya vodka for Pepsi syrup so that they could bottle it in Russia and sell it in Russia. Because the Russian ruble was a closed currency and basically worthless anywhere outside of Russia. So they had to trade something, so it was vodka. So yeah, it was that kind of classic Russian thing of we trade soda for vodka. But then past that, it got to a point where they had to renew the agreement. I think it was late 80s, I think it was, and there wasn't really enough vodka to trade for Pepsi syrup because they wanted even more. So they traded it was some large amount of warships, submarines, and everything. So essentially, Pepsi was the second biggest military in the world at one point when they basically traded a shit ton of military equipment and I think even some personnel or something weird like that. It was personnel training or something in exchange for for their Pepsi syrup, which was absolutely nuts. And then the trail goes cold from there as well. So it's a bit where did this stuff go? Maybe Pepsi is going to start a war against cola. Who knows?
That could happen. That could happen.
Yeah, it could
that's very interesting. No, okay, that's cool. Well, I think that's settled the debate, hasn't it? I don't know who would win out of our 3 Disney characters in our teams, but I guess maybe we'll
down, mate.
I think we'll have to jump on some kind of Super Smash Brothers or something to battle it out. Given we've got all this time this week. That could work.
Yeah, true.
So we'll see. So at this point in the podcast, we usually jump into a little game. that we like to call Have I Got Fake News For You?
Have I got fake news for you?
And this week, it's actually, given last week we went into a bit of a National Geographic sort of foray, we're going to have a look at 3 stories this week. Now, 2 of them are fake news, and all 3 of them are about animals. 2 of them are, so one of them's the real story.
Right.
Okay. And they're all about animals. It's all stuff that's come out since COVID-19, okay?
Okay.
So I'll give you the 3 bullet point titles, and then you can talk and ask questions, okay?
Okay.
So the first one is that for the first time in many, many years, swans have finally returned to Venice.
Okay.
The second story is that in Venice, they have also spotted dolphins swimming in the canals. And the third story, and I wish he was here for this was something that Nibsy debuted last week, was that drunken elephants did go into a pool of wine, or they found a pool of wine, and they drunk it and then passed out in a field drunk. And we talked about whether they were lightweights or not. Okay, so there you go. I mean, there is obviously quite a heavy clue there as to maybe one that is potentially not true and was fake news. But in the effort of fair game, I'll let you take it away with some questions.
So,
Okay.
I mean, well, I told you from the start, guys, never believe a word that Nibs says, so we know we can rule that one out to start with.
So wait, so did he bullshit us last week?
The poor guy's not even here to defend him.
No, this is when we get it in.
He bullshitted us last week then with this elephant.
Yeah, apparently he did.
All right, so look, obviously TW3 looks to tackle fake news. Now, unfortunately, upon later research, we did actually find out that the elephant story, again, unfortunately, is false. And the elephants didn't actually pass out. So I guess that narrows it down quite nicely to 2 for you.
So it's whales or swans, right? Okay, not
Dolphins.
whales. So dolphins or
No,
swans.
dolphins.
I would like to
I
have
don't
seen a
think whales
whale
could fit
go
down
through
Venetian
this.
canals.
Okay. Well, how would the swans be getting there? Like, do swans fly? I think they do, don't they? But not really. Like,
What? Have you seen a swan before?
they don't migrate. Yeah, but they don't migrate, do they? They don't like fly massive distances, do they?
You heard it here first, guys. Lawrence asking the pertinent questions of our
Do
time.
swans fly?
Do
Well,
swans
I've
fly?
seen them like flap about, but I've not seen them fucking fly miles. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, how long do you watch them for? Yeah, still
I
flying.
suppose. Yeah. Okay, so they do migrate and everything, do they? They actually migrate.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yes,
They got
they
massive
do.
bodies, man. How do they get up? Is it like the
They've got
airplane?
massive wings.
Yeah, they got big old wings as well. Like,
It's like, how the hell do you think an Airbus A380 flies?
Yeah, that
Massive
would
body,
that
but
would
it's
not
got bloody
fly.
big wings as well.
That would
They
not
even had
fly
to
without the
redesign
engine.
airports worldwide.
That would not fly without the engine. That would not. Okay, that would drop out the sky.
Yeah, but the wings don't also flap.
Okay, well,
this gets me onto the topic, guys. That I bloody hate swans. I feel like they're my real sort of lifetime arch nemesis is flipping swans. I can remember back from when I was a kid, walking through the park, just there I was, happy young Greg, feeding the ducks my crust of bread that I'd taken down in a bag with me, and then bloody swans giving it large from they've got nothing to do with what I'm doing, all coming over, hissing at me, biting my fingers.
yeah, you know
Swans.
why? Because the swans know you're not meant to feed ducks bread because it inflates in their stomach and hurts them.
No,
so
that's rice, isn't it?
no, it's not. It's bread. You're not meant to feed them bread. So the swans were protecting the ducks. They were like, gee, you asshole,
Oh no.
back
Well,
off,
this
mate.
is a little bit of interesting trivia for you because something came up the other day. Does anyone know what a female swan is called?
Swanetta, Swankisha.
And you didn't even know they flew until about 2 minutes ago, so I'm not taking any answer you say.
Swankisha, Swanetta.
Isn't it like a
This is where you all quickly Google.
Isn't it like a cygnet, or is that a male or a young swan?
That's a baby swan.
Oh.
So a female swan is called a pen,
Oh.
and a male swan is called a cob.
Oh, it would have been funny if it was like a pen and an is.
No.
Great.
Not quite, Lawrence. Lovely.
Um,
Very cheapening our show here.
Okay, well, I mean...
Yeah, so, should we get back on?
Yeah,
Come on.
I unfortunately again know what the answer is. So, do you want to guess, Lawrence?
Okay, I'm gonna guess first. I'm gonna say that swans have returned, but I feel like it might be dolphins. But I'm gonna go for swans. I think that's the real one.
Okay.
Yeah,
G?
it is in fact. Yeah, dolphins have indeed been sighted, haven't they? Returning to Venice.
No, not quite. So there was actually a viral video that went out about dolphins, because obviously in this whole crisis everyone's jumping up and down and saying how good it is for the environment, and of course it is, but people sent out this viral video showing that dolphins have returned. It's not actually true. This video was actually filmed off the coast of Sardinia. The correct answer is swans, but there's a bit of a caveat, Lawrence, before you start celebrating too hard.
No, I still won. I still won.
There is a bit of a caveat in that swans have actually always lived in Venice. Now, I don't know if you know about the kind of how Venice is made up, but it's made up of obviously the main island, but there's lots of little small islands. Murano, Burano, Torcello. And swans do reside year round in Burano.
Right, okay.
Believe it or
But
not.
they've returned to the other islands.
So people, yeah, well, they've kind of, obviously, they've now, I suppose, now they've got a nice bit of peace and quiet. They've been migrating a little bit more, but the swans do live full-time in Venice, so saying they're returned isn't quite correct.
Do they pay rent?
I mean, never to go to Venice ever again.
No. So, that was Have I Got Fake News for You?
Have I got fake news for you?
Thank you, Dom.
No problem. When we come back, we will be taking a little deep dive into the life of John McAfee.
Yay.
We'll be right back.
Caw-caw!
Welcome back. So, where we left off, we're going to jump in to the life of John McAfee, presented by Lawrence Ray. This is
Hello.
a multi-part series. You jumped the gun there a bit, Lawrence.
Oh,
It's a
apologies.
multi-part series documenting the interesting facets of John McAfee's life. So we'll let Lawrence take it away.
Thank you very much. Yeah, John McAfee is a man who is interesting for one way of thinking about it. He's a man who made a lot of money and has also been a serious drug addict, has run a gang, has lived in multiple countries, evaded the law, had 7 girlfriends at once, ran for president. He's done a lot, and he's also been shrouded in murder mysteries as well, where he potentially killed people. So you're going to find out a lot more about him in the coming episodes. Today is not as much of an entertaining one because I'm going to give you some background about Sir McAfee. So we'll start. He was born in England 18th September 1945, and then swiftly after his family moved to Virginia. So he's actually English, which is fantastic.
Represent.
Yeah, exactly, representing, boy. And so essentially he did a maths degree, and then he worked at quite a lot of places, so like NASA, Xerox, Lockheed Martin, government positions, but essentially kept losing his jobs because he was selling drugs and doing drugs whilst at work. So, it's probably not going to help you. And he actually lost his job at Missouri Pacific Railroad for showing up at work after taking a whole bag of DMT. So he was obviously tripping his entire life out the window at the time that he turned up for work. Anyway, after all that stuff, he basically read about computer viruses in the 1980s and basically got a whole group of programmers together who wrote him an antivirus software, and he then gave that software away for free, but put in the fine print that companies would have to pay a licensing fee to have it. And he basically was banking on like you and I going to work and going, oh, this is great free software for antivirus. You can downloading it, and then bam, the company has to start paying. So that's what he did. And essentially, he built up the company. There were more viruses. He kept going on the news to promote his company. And there was this big virus in 1991 called the Michelangelo virus, and he prophesied that about 5 million computers would be destroyed by it. But in the end, only about 10,000 were destroyed, and everyone got pissed off at him. But McAfee Antivirus then had 67% of the antivirus market, which is quite big.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that's massive.
Yeah. So essentially, he really took over, but had this negative press. So essentially, his investors wanted him out of the company because he was fantastic at marketing, but he was basically a shit CEO. They used to have like sex sword fights Wiccan ceremonies, sex parties, like all this sort of stuff in the company. So
sounds like WeWork.
Yeah, sounds like Wolf of Wall Street-esque, basically, from what was going on. There's pictures of him with like weird, dodgy sex masks on, like in the office and stuff. So in 1992, he got replaced as CEO and cashed out his shares in the company for $100 million, which is pretty good for 1992. Now, a little fact for you: if he'd waited till 2011 to cash out, the company sold for $7.7 billion to Intel. So he probably would have had $1 billion or so. So that's where I'm going to finish off. It's just give you some background story.
Wow.
This guy's a bit of a nut job, but somehow, without knowing anything about programming or how to make antivirus software, he controls 67% of the market at one point. Now, yeah, as I said, to come is a lot of interesting and strange stuff, which you'll find out about.
Okay, well, we look forward to that next week.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of mysteries coming. This is probably going to be about a 20-part series because there's a lot to go over. And it gets more preposterous as it goes on.
Brilliant. Okay, so brilliant. Thanks for that, Lawrence. We look forward to next week.
No problemo.
Greg, you've got one more story, haven't you? This week.
I do, yeah, indeed, yeah. So Portland, in line with countries, states around the world, has been forced to close, a lot of non-essential businesses, and so the Lucky Devil Lounge strip club was unfortunately forced to close its doors. But of course, the order to close all establishments does allow food establishments to offer takeout still, for delivery. And so from the ashes of the Lucky Devil Lounge has risen Boober Eats.
Boober Eats.
That's brilliant.
So the owner of the Lucky Devil Lounge, he just wanted to keep everyone on payroll, provide jobs for everyone. So I watched a short clip of him sort of describing how everyone's been sort of reallocated. So strippers now deliver food to the homes of people that order it. All the people that were bartending or sort of handling social media and taking calls for orders. All the chefs are still employed, like making food for now home delivery. So yeah, it was funny, but also heartwarming that he's sort of keeping people in jobs during these tough times.
Yeah, what a great man.
It sounds like Hooters home delivery.
Well, exactly, yeah.
But Hooters, they don't strip, do they? They just wear sort of scantily clad clothes.
Yeah.
Interestingly, actually, did you know that there was such a thing as Hooters Air?
Yes, Hooters Airline.
There was an airline by Hooters.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was an airline, I think.
It's just regional.
I don't have the facts
just
in front
regional.
of me. I know it was just regional, but I think it was fairly local, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it only ran a few routes.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was essentially an airline which had staff, their cabin crew were Hooters air hostesses, but interestingly, they couldn't actually have Hooters air hostesses as the cabin crew because cabin crew have to go through so much high training. Yeah. Obviously, you don't want some woman on roller skates, topless, flying your aeroplane. And so Hooters Air was in the real kind of air. It kind of went up on the airline boom, and then it promptly came crashing down fairly sharply, and it unfortunately does not exist today. And it certainly wouldn't exist now, but there we go. So that's a little interesting snippet. Sad times indeed. So without further ado, I'll move on to my last story, which is, as you know, on TW3 we like to kind of mock people who deserve it, and Facebook really deserves mocking here. It just does, but I don't know whether it's Facebook or general public. But you can let me know and decide.
Both.
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, this might just be my kind of misanthropic nature coming out. So Facebook released a step-by-step instruction guide on how to spot fake news. Okay. Now, there's a lot of things, and reading it, I couldn't possibly read it all out, but I will just read some of the headlines that they released saying how to spot fake news. Number 1, be skeptical of headlines. Fake news headlines often sound too good to be true because they are. Okay, that was one.
That's a rule to live by, to be fair.
I mean, well, exactly. And I don't know whether this one is just because, obviously, I work with computers a lot, so I'm always looking at URL links. But for me, this is so obvious. Look closely at the URL link. Never heard of the news site in the URL? Does the link sound like an established news source you've heard of, but there's a letter or two added or missing? These are the telltale signs that whatever the link leads, it's not to the truth.
Ooh.
All right, so there's loads of other ones. I'll give you one more. Some stories are intentionally false. Oh, really?
What?
That's good to know. Thank you.
You mean
Mark.
people lie on the internet?
Apparently, yeah. So apparently, people lie on the internet. I never knew this.
Christ,
Did you
man.
guys?
No, I was not aware of that at all.
The thing is, I know there's a lot of people that say it didn't happen if it's not on Instagram. That's what I say to people when I see people take photos of their food and things like this. I say it didn't happen if it's not on Instagram.
True.
I suppose the other one is it's not true if you didn't read it on Facebook.
Yeah, that is
That's the way it's
interesting.
going.
And I suppose the last one is call quality is always bad if you call on WhatsApp.
What I find interesting is that obviously now we all know now really that Facebook is essentially social media for boomers. I mean, no one really enjoys it who's below the age of about 30, 35, 40 by this point. It's your mum and it's your mum and dad. They're the ones who are enjoying Facebook and your aunt and that lot, right? So I find it funny that obviously as kids we were always told, people lie, don't believe everything you hear, blah, blah, blah. And yet now Facebook's having to preach to those exact people to tell them not to believe everything they see on the internet, which that's what makes me giggle a little bit inside.
I always think it's funny with like social media, but it's just you just see the same sort of like evolution of a generation, I suppose, like on the social media. So like we went through all these sort of stages when we were in school, and we were sort of like getting on Facebook or whatever was big at the time, and so we went through all those sort of like rookie eras we see now. And now that our parents have come to this later than us, they're just going through the same things that we used to do, but they're just, they've come to it a lot later than us. And they're at a later stage in their life, so it looks like, well, they should do better. But I suppose it's, the pitfalls are still there for people that haven't used the social media and that kind of thing before, I suppose,
I suppose the clue is stay off social media, boys and girls.
Oh, definitely. Just stay away from all of it. It literally does not enrich your life in any way, shape or form. I know. I used to sort of be with the side of it that it helps you stay in touch. It is good to, but now I just think there are other avenues for that now as well that you just don't need it, and it's just unfortunately it's been ruined by the way that you can make money out of it now, and companies can make money off it. It's just ruined any sort of small glimmer there might have been of enriching people's lives.
Yeah, agreed.
It's a cesspit of idiocy.
Yeah. Everything gets commercialised. So anyway, if you want my Twitter, my Facebook, my Instagram, or
actually,
feel free to get me at.
On that note, if you want to get in touch with us, you can tweet us at TW3 Media or write into us at podcast@tw3media.co.uk. But yeah, it's interesting you should say that because there was a little bit of a study, and I read this in an article in The Guardian, and there was a bit of a study that said that the older generation is actually responsible for a lot of the fake news being spread as well. Because essentially, I mean, I've got to think to my mum here. My mum is a very, very highly intelligent individual, but she is also the kind of person that if a notification pops up on her telephone which says something false, she will probably send it to me because she kind of has that assumption that if the funny technological device is telling her that something is such, then the computer must be right, if you see what I mean.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? That they say, a lot of the fake news out there and whatever, it's not even being put out there into the world in trying to sort of like convince people that this is the right idea. It literally is, because it's fake and people know it's fake, it's more likely to spread. And there's a really good video on this, which I will put in the show notes from a guy called CGP Grey on YouTube, and he talks about how the reaction that promotes the sort of just the viral sort of spread that people want from their content on the internet, it is like things that will cause arguments. So they put out the fake news there, and then the public does all the work for them. They say, like, "Oh, do you see?"
Absolutely.
If people are on the side of it or not on the side of it, it's contentious, and therefore it just spreads.
I find it absolutely astounding how certain fake news that gets put out there can actually crash stock markets. I mean, last week there was actually a fake news chain of text messages that got pinged to millions of Americans, and it was basically just spread by lots and lots of different people, and the message said that New York is going into lockdown and certain parts of America, and that the military are getting mobilized, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And obviously then the stock market took a hit because so many people assumed that it was from a reputable source because it was a friend of a friend of a friend who had told them. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And this long chain of text messages actually can impact world economies, which is just fascinating.
I love that. That's brilliant. Yeah, we got the people got the power, bro. No, yeah. To be fair though, let's be real. The depression is incoming anyway. The stock market was bound to crash. So, but yeah. So it's pretty amazing how much power that we have at this time with fake news.
You know, you do have to ask like one pertinent question, and that question is, well, what are companies doing about this? Because if you think about it, iMessage is encrypted, WhatsApp is encrypted. There are also various other mediums by which we communicate over, which have end-to-end encryption, which, in case you don't know, essentially means that the company can never actually see the message. It's encrypted in exactly the same way as if your password was stored on a database. If that database was ever hacked, that password would hopefully, providing you're not visiting strange websites, is stored in encrypted form. So what are companies doing? Well, WhatsApp have actually announced that they are limiting the number of times you can forward a specific message to 5 people, which is quite good.
Yeah, that's.
I mean,
made a massive difference here. I mean, one way the president here in Brazil got elected was because they had these massive messages and groups of like going on about his policies and his plans, and it just went around and around and around. Like everyone got bombarded with it. So it's one of the ways actually that he managed to spread news and get elected was through group WhatsApp messaging.
Well, look, there's one more article which I'll just briefly mention, given we're on the subject. This is actually an article by Scientific American, which we'll, of course, link in the description, which talks about how fake news websites may not actually have a major effect on elections. This study, which looked, as most of these studies do, given Mr. Trump is synonymous with fake news, looked at the 2016 election cycle. And it said that at least 44% of voters had seen false information, but had also seen real information as well. So they weren't just getting their information from like a singular fake news sources. So it did look at, it's quite interesting. It's an interesting little read. You can have a look down it if you have some time. Anyway, Lawrence, you can go with your story now.
Yeah, so just as reputable as like American Science or whatever that was, the Daily Mirror has brought us a golden story in this time. So this one hit home a little bit for me. I feel personally attacked. Now on the Mirror they said the headline is "Mum soaks her entire Tesco shop in bath over fears of coronavirus contamination." Okay. Now this is where it says here essentially, it's important to do what we've got to do, blah blah blah. Now, one idea that we don't condone, apparently they don't condone it or advise that it's replicated, is that one mum who wanted to clean her food shop before it went into the cupboards and fridge of her home decided the best way to do it was to give it a bit of a bubble bath. So there's a picture of all the food, frozen, fridge, dry, whatever, sitting in a bath of
frozen as well.
Yeah, she went straight for it. Frozen. So now, okay, I'm going to tell you something that happened
what kind of world do we live
about, I don't know, 8-9 days ago. We moved to a new Airbnb. Maybe it's 7 days ago, actually. We moved to a new Airbnb here in Brazil. Beautiful, sunny Brazil. And when we did so, we went for a big shop. Thought we'd get as much as we can so we don't have to go back out for a shop again. I had a dust mask on because we all know that is perfect to preventing coronavirus spread. not just dust. And we went out there, and when we got back, we then got a bucket of water and a bar of soap, and we washed all of the food and then let it dry on the floor and then put it away with water and soap. Now, I was not the one behind the idea, but I thought, fair enough, better safe than sorry. Now, is that completely retarded, or should we have just put it all in the fridge?
Well, I mean, you have got me thinking now, because I remember reading a while back that the virus doesn't live very long on surfaces, does it? But then someone said to me the other day that it does live for sort of a couple of days.
It does, yeah. It lives for a few hours. No hours.
Oh, it is a couple of hours. That's what I thought.
Yeah. So I guess there's that worry.
I mean, who knows? Maybe someone's been down to a local supermarket and they just coughed over everything, in which case, scrub away.
We've done the right thing. Now, having said that, yesterday I went on another shop to get some more goodies and could not be bothered to soap and wash it, so we're probably
I think it's just good practice it's good, I never soap it, but it's good practice to just,
soaking it in a bath.
Wash your fresh fruit and veg, that's just kind of a bit too far.
Soaking it in a bath is a little bit much, I think, especially fridge, frozen and dry all in one bath. I think wouldn't that be more of a problem? Especially meat as well. Because I remember reading before, a while ago, this is a few years back, that there was more like salmonella and diseases on the meat packet than there is even on the outside than there is even on the inside, because it's all it's like juices and everything all over the place and they pack it up. So
and also that stuff needs to go in the fridge. Like, how long is it sitting in lukewarm bath water for?
Yeah, so it's a bit dodge. So boys and girls, probably, if you really want to, get a bucket of water and some soap and just give it a nice once over before you put it in the fridge or whatever. But probably just better off leaving it be, or leaving it in the sun if it's not fridge or frozen, because apparently UV rays destroy the virus, apparently. Now, I'm sure that's fake news, but that's what I was told.
This is fake news. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's all fake.
We are going to link, and we'll make sure that it's linked. There's an article from the World Health Organization, which has listed a bunch of myths about coronavirus, and we're going to link it in the bottom. Do give it a read,
please.
The WHO has also set up a WhatsApp for Business number that you can message, and you can ask questions and get responses. So please get your information from them. Don't get them from and if you are putting your whole shopping in a bubble bath, maybe drown yourself in it as well.
There's something else actually. Go follow our Twitter, because what I'll do is make sure that we retweet an absolutely hilarious video from the World Health Organization. It's going to be one of the best things I've seen in a long time. It's honestly the best. We'll retweet that, so go and have a look at that. It's to do with the World Health Organization, and it's classic. It's proper comedy. So yeah, we'll do that. Before we leave, boys, Dom, I've still got my Trump quote of the week to give everyone before we leave.
Oh, of course.
All right. Well, look, let's do good news, and then we'll sign off with Donald Trump fake news quote of the week or whatever it is.
No, it's real.
Okay?
It's always real.
Oh, is this real?
Oh yeah.
Right. Did you boys see that video on The Independent that I sent you? That is just comedy.
Oh yeah,
please give that a watch.
Yeah.
We're gonna link that. I mean, it does a brilliant job as what Donald Trump would call fake news media taking it out of context. But it does a brilliant job of chronicling Donald Trump throughout this coronavirus
he was a wonderful man.
Obviously we start off with Donald Trump going, "I like the numbers, guys. I like the numbers." 5 people, 9 people, 12 people, and it really and we're going to link that in the descriptions as well, because it's a must watch. Anyway, without further ado, we must get to good news this week. So this is a segment where we over a minute, and I know it's incredibly difficult at this time when there isn't much good happening in the world, but we promise we will find it. And Greg is doing the honour this week in place of Nibsy.
On your marks.
Get set. 1 minute of good news. Go.
Healthcare workers applaud worldwide. UK joins countries like Italy, Spain and China in thanking healthcare workers for their tireless effort against COVID-19. Hundreds of thousands of people volunteered to help the NHS in the UK after government initially planned to recruit 250,000. The target was achieved and doubled within a matter of days. Crocs in America set to donate 10,000 pairs of shoes to healthcare workers. Airbnb offers NHS workers free homes during the outbreak. A man in southeast London has run a marathon in his back garden to raise money for cancer charity and to promote staying local for your exercise. A woman in Prescott, Arizona dropped off an envelope filled with cash to a local pizza shop owner who is now paying it forward to staff as the local restaurants get hit by the coronavirus pandemic. Carnival Corporation says it will make cruise ships available to serve as temporary hospitals in locations that need them to combat the coronavirus. Tito's Vodka to start manufacturing hand sanitizer for the pandemic. Owner of North Jersey Pizzeria takes out a $50,000 credit line to pay his employees. And lastly, Joe Wicks, running daily PE lessons on YouTube, has announced that he's donating all of his advertising revenue from the videos to the NHS. What a legend.
Hey.
Go Joe!
Go Joe!
Oi! Okay,
Go Joe.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Greg. That was awesome. So there is good happening in the world. You've just got to find it. And if you can't be bothered to find it, then you need to follow us at TW3 Media at Twitter. Or if you've got something to say, then please do email us at podcast@tw3media.co.uk. We're going to leave it there, and we're going to leave you on a Trump quote of the week.
Absolutely.
Take it away, Lawrence.
So the Trump quote of the week doesn't always have to be from this week. It's just a Trump quote that is real, that I love. So my Trump quote this week, which I think might be quite recent, is I like China. I just sold an apartment for $15 million to someone from China. Am I supposed to dislike them?
Hey!
Oh, brilliant.
Good old Donny there.
He likes
guys,
China.
We're going to leave you there. We're going to leave you there. Thank you very much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe. You can get to us on all of your favourite podcast mediums, Spotify, etc. Just don't forget, if you've got something to say, podcast@tw3media.co.uk. That was the week that was. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
And remember, kids, don't take drugs and stay in school.
Yeah, don't become John McAfee.
Yeah, that's true.
Who needs $100 billion?
Yeah, exactly.
What is that, pocket change? See you later, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.